Okay, and we are live, and so we are going to be launching right into it today. And today's YouTube is about. I'm going to wait 1 second just to see if we get a couple eyeballs on here. 1 second. All right. So we are today doing a show that we call Biden Family Pardons Incoming, and I love this thumbnail we came up with. And so this is all about the first part is all about the Biden crime family, this coup d'etat that seemed to happen from Democratic insiders on Biden and what is likely to flow from that. And so one of the first things I want to touch on is the this Biden resignation letter. And so, you know, Biden suddenly states that, oh, we're going to perhaps have to leave if I have a medical condition, right? And then a few hours after saying that, suddenly he develops C-19. And then he had also said several months ago, or even a few years ago, that if ever there was a problem with his fellow Democrats, he would just make up a disease so he could drop out. And then hours before this letter is released, Biden said he would drop out for a medical condition, and then hours later, he drops out. What a coincidence. What an incredible coincidence. And so one of the things that I'm wondering about is, will Biden pardon himself, his brother, and his son Hunter, and perhaps Jill or anyone else who's part of the Biden crime family, and then either they'll claim that he has dementia, or they might even fake his death, because his brother said, oh, he's not feeling too well. He might not make it. He might not be with us very long, which smells and sounds like narrative prep. And the big problem that Biden and his family have right now is that they don't trust Kamala or whoever's going to replace her, more on that later. They don't trust them to pardon everyone in the family until after the election's over, maybe. Right? And that's why Biden won't resign, is because he wants to do this. And my suspicion is that at some point, probably before the convention, Biden will pardon everyone, and then they'll claim he has dementia, or he'll pass away, and then that would be perfect, right? Because they get sympathy from Trump to Biden, because Biden's actually passed away, ding, right? And so that would move the sympathy from Trump to Biden. And it would also allow them, that whole thing they like to do of, oh, some terrible war criminal has died. We can't delve too deeply into what they did. But now is a time of mourning, and don't say anything negative about the dead. It would just check a lot of boxes for the Malachians, right? So let's get to this resignation letter. So here's the resignation letter. The text of it doesn't really matter. But at the very end, there's a very odd thing, which is that the signature doesn't even look like his. So there is the signature up top in red, and you can compare it to all those other signatures from just this year, and it just doesn't look like his signature. You don't even have to be a handwriting expert to see it. And once again, Malachian psyops are nothing, and hide everyone who's showing up, Max and Eric. And anyone wants to shout out, I'll try and get to it as I have availability. But anyone, can look at this and see that it's not Biden's signature, and it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. And it's just a classic Malachian psyops where it's just so clumsy and ham-fisted. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and it just makes me think that clearly he didn't do it. And in fact, the mystery's been solved. Oops. I guess, so the mystery's been solved, and it was actually some staffer or someone in the cabinet who wrote it for him. And so I'm just going to take a quick moment and let you know that there's going to be a new round of angelic magic classes for the EU and UK, and also a USA time zone angelic magic class. And there's a potential for an Australia, Oceania time zone. So that's Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, et cetera, over there, Indonesia, right, Bali. But I have to have 3+ students write me to ask for the course. Excuse me. I'm also offering sliding scale for all of these courses, as well as spiritual guidance sessions in limited quality. And I'm also going to have a introduction to Vedic astrology course that will also be offered with sliding scale. And so there is, it's called, it's on the website, and it's called, gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, on the website, if you click on the three little lines in the upper right-hand corner, there will be a form to fill out to ask for the sliding scale. So also, you may want to check out last week's members only stream for all the esoteric symbolism and what points to a magical ritual that was done by both the Malachians and the Luciferians that occurred during the attempt to take Trump's life. So another thing we're going to talk about in the second half is, are the angelic prophecies already coming true in France? And so there's more on that in the second half. All right, so let's get back to the Biden coup, right? And who's benefiting right now, or seems to be? Good old cackling Kamala, right? Just absolutely ridiculous. So, you know, are they even going to run Kamala? You have to ask that question. Earlier this week, Trump said, you know, I'm not sure that I'm willing to debate Kamala until she has been chosen as the actual candidate for the Democrats, because right now that's up in the air. She's getting all these endorsements, but it hasn't been made official. And that's a very interesting point. And CNN's like, oh, Trump won't debate Kamala. He's so scared of Kamala. What happened to any time, any place? Well, Trump doesn't want to waste any steam, any time or effort, or any good zingers or opponent opposition research if they're not going to run Kamala. And I'm actually of the opinion that they're not going to run Kamala. That she is just there, much like the corpse of Biden at the last debate, just there to absorb slings and arrows and to actually make a future Democratic candidate look even better. And so Ella Shiva has put up real quick, for those who are interested, that's the Angelic Magic course, if you're interested. And there's also the astrology course. And then this is, it's called Sacred Support Program, is for the sliding scale for any of those classes, or if you want spiritual guidance. And again, it's in limited quantity. It is first come, first serve, and it's also going to be merit based. And so you have to fill out a questionnaire for that. Okay, so back to this. So one of the interesting things that happened this week was there was this book called Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts by Caleb Maupin. And it's actually been up on Google for ages and ages, right? And all of a sudden this week, once Kamala was the presumptive candidate, right? Presumptive being keyword, it's not locked in. Amazon scrubbed it for them from their site. If you go and you look it up, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, you'll still find a link. But if you click on the link, boom, sorry, can't find that page. Try searching Amazon's homepage. Hey, are you interested in the dogs of Amazon? What? And so check that out. Let's just do a little comparison here, right? Oh, we took it down for, they claimed, and Jimmy Dore did a whole video about this, and you can look into it more for more in-depth on that, and tip of the hat to Jimmy Dore for the research on that. He had Caleb Maupin on. They claimed that there was something wrong with the cover. He tried 4 different covers, and eventually they just said denied and you can't try anymore, right? But there's something like insightful or bad about the cover. Compare that to what was up until Thursday, just yesterday. This seller on Amazon was sold merchandise reading, "The only good Trump is a dead one." Whoa! That was still up until yesterday. That was just absolutely, absolutely shocking. And so I think that this is a trial balloon of Kamala, and then when she fails and takes all the arrows from the media and takes all the arrows from the Republicans, then suddenly the superdelegates will step in at the DNC and save democracy by appointing their real choice, right? And the reason I think that is right now Kamala is moving the Overton window way to the left, like to a crazy, crazy, crazy degree. And here you have it, the NowGov track, which tracks the voting records of House and Senate lawmakers, has scrubbed a 2019 analysis which ranked then Senator Harris as the most liberal U.S. senator. And it was scrubbed at some point between July 8th and July 23rd. And it's just crazy because they said, oh, well, we always thought that that wasn't reliable, but we kept it up for all these years until just now, right? And what I love about this is the Malakians are using their normal ham-fisted, heavy-handed censorship techniques, which of course they're going to copy and paste when they put their next candidate in, which makes it even more obvious what they're doing, which plays right into the Luciferians' hands. And so how do we know she's the most liberal? Check this out. She just went on RuPaul's drag show, and I'm not sure if this was an official campaign video or if it was just on that show, but it was just absolutely wild. They had drag queens, they had extremely flamboyant gay men, and I'm assuming a lesbian woman, I'm not sure. I couldn't really watch much of it before I was laughing so hard and just like, wow, like the pandering is off the charts here. And of course, I support people to love whoever they love and be with whoever they want to. Consenting adults, that's just my standard. Consenting adults, please go nuts, do whatever you want in your own house. But, you know, it's kind of crazy, like how far left Kamala is swinging and how far left she's pushing that Overton window, which then, right, and just another part of that Overton window and some other information about her, and then I'll get back to the Overton window, is in 2019, she was the third most absent in all votes versus all senators. That's insane. That means that 97 out of 100 senators were better than her at attendance. She also had the fewest committee positions versus Senate sophomores, because she was a sophomore in the Senate then. This is after she was, you know, laughing about how all those single moms who had children who were truants, right? And black women especially were being thrown into prison and then put into the prison to work pipeline and competing with what should have been high-paid firefighters to fight the California wildfires. And also there were people with drug charges around marijuana that were put out in the front lines of these firefighting and taking jobs from high-paying firefighting jobs, which are very well paid. Well, very well paid is a bit strong, but they're certainly more well paid than prison labor. And when a judge demanded, as Attorney General of California, that Kamala Harris was at the time, when a judge demanded that she free those people, she just ran the clock out on the judge, and I think got 3 letters from him. Just absolutely insane. And so by the time she was in her second term as a senator, she had the fewest committee positions of anyone, because even her own party knows that she's just an empty puppet, right? Famous for getting on her knees for the Black Lives Matter protest. Anyways, and so she joined bipartisan bills the least often of any Senate Democrat. Wow. The least often of any Senate Democrat. Those are just some facts. So she's so liberal and so off the chain and so ridiculous that it makes it really easy for them to then go, hey, guess what? We decided she's too liberal. We're going to go with the centrists. And then they're going to roll out the real candidate at the DNC. This is what I believe is going to happen. You're going to either see, you know, High Priestess of Moloch, Hillary Clinton. You're going to see the soulless suit slash Gotham City villain, you know, knockoff from Temu, right? Gavin Newsom. Or you're going to see Michelle Obama, who of course has some other names, but I already went low enough with the Kamala joke, so I'll leave it at that. But they're going to pick one of these 3. A lot of people, including someone I know who knows a former Democratic senator, right? That person claims that under no circumstances will Michelle Obama run. I'm not too sure about that. That would be the strongest candidate they can run just because of Obama. I don't think that if they ran Obama himself, if that were somehow legal, that he would be able to beat Trump at this point, especially with the attempt on his life a couple weeks ago. And certainly, you know, soulless suit Gavin Newsom, they can just tie around his neck all the disaster of California. And he suddenly is like, oh, homeless encampments are dangerous now. I'm going to get rid of them. The same way he did when Xi Jinping came to visit. He got rid of all the homeless everywhere that Xi Jinping would go. And then he let the fentanyl tent cities run wild after that. And of course, the Democrats aren't like, you know, helping the homeless people get jobs and do work training and get addiction counseling services. and mental health trauma specialists and getting like triage in there to help people. No, they're just cleaning aside the tent cities in a complete lack of, in just a complete lack of compassion for their fellow human beings. And so we're coming up on the August 4th Ohio deadline for a candidate. And that looks to me like it's going to be quite possibly missed. Meaning, I don't think the Democrats are going to come forward with their true choice unless it is Kamala. And if it's Kamala, they're cooked. There's no chance Kamala beats Trump. And if Kamala's in a debate with Trump, it'll make the debate against the corpse of Biden look like Biden was frickin' Oscar Wilde in his prime in terms of wit and comebacks. Like, my God, there's not a chance on earth that Kamala can beat the Donalds in a debate. Michelle Obama, I'm not too sure about. I don't know how Michelle Obama, I've heard she doesn't do well under pressure. Gavin Newsom doesn't do well under pressure. Hillary doesn't do super well under pressure, but she's probably the most likely to do well in a debate against Trump. But I mean, is she really that much of a glutton for punishment that she would go in to lose again? Because she's almost certainly going to lose again if she decides to run again. Like, I just don't see any frickin' way that Hillary could win. I mean, Newsom and Michelle Obama, they have a snowball's chance in hell of winning. I don't think that Hillary Clinton has a snowflake in hell's chance of winning, right? Like, forget a snowball, a snowflake. Like, there's just no way that she can possibly beat Trump. And is she that much of a glutton for punishment or that delusional that she would run again? Maybe. They seem to be floating that a little while ago, and people, just responded with the gif of, from Goodfellas where they go, that was people's general response when they floated Hillary as a potential candidate. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And there was not a chance on earth that she's going to be able to beat Trump, especially not with the recent attempt on his life. And so this August 4th Ohio deadline, what that is that it says, and I believe the Ohio state constitution, that the candidate for both parties has to be submitted to them by August 4th in order that they can be on the ballot in November. So right now it says Biden, right? Because I don't think it's been removed unless his resignation removed it. But anyway you slice it, if the Democrats don't come up with a candidate who can replace Biden on the ballot, then that means in theory all of the delegates in Ohio, which is a swing state, would automatically go to Trump because he'd be running unopposed for president. Or maybe there'd be some third party people. Maybe there'd be like some Greens or Libertarians, or whatever constitutional party. You know what I mean? There might be some fringe candidates on there, but it would basically be Trump, which would guarantee that he'd get Ohio's delegates. And so how could that possibly be that the Democrats will be able to get around that? So my thought on that is they might run Kamala. I mean, today the Obamas said that they were going to endorse Kamala, right? And she's gotten a lot of major league endorsements, probably the most important of which was Alex Soros, George Soros' son. So is it real? Well, it hasn't been made official, which Trump keeps pointing out when the Democrats are asking him to debate Kamala Harris, right? And so I don't think that they're going to run with her, but there is this August 4th deadline looming, and it's before the DNC, before the superdelegates can get in their cigar smoke-filled room and, dry wash their hands and have a heat lamp above the table, but everyone's nested in shadow, right? Get to decide who will be the actual candidate, right? And so if they don't have time to do the DNC, or rather the DNC is scheduled after the August 4th Ohio ballot requirement, what are the Democrats to do? Are they just going to run with Kamala? Is Kamala just going to placehold for a few more days and then boom, last minute on August 3rd, they're going to announce the real candidate, Hillary Newsom or Michelle Obama. I don't know. That seems a little tight to me in terms of timing. And it seems like they're coalescing around Kamala. I just can't imagine a world where they actually want to run with Kamala. It seems to me that they need to get rid of Biden because Biden thinks that Kamala will perhaps pardon him and his family if need be, although he doesn't trust that 100% because, again, he hasn't resigned yet, right? And that's the big quandary that the Democrats have. And I'm going to go back to this because I just love this so much. I love the ice cream cone there. They need that pardon. And that's why they haven't gotten rid of Kamala yet. Because I think the Biden family agreed for him to drop out of the race but not resign, right? And the Democrats have a real issue here because Biden won't release the office without pardoning himself and his family because he's terrified that all the Burisma and so forth stuff is going to come out, right? Well, I hopefully won't get hit by the algo there. But he's afraid that all that kind of stuff and the CCP stuff, just all the stuff coming with Hunter and the Devon Archer, all the stuff he said. So what are the Democrats to do? Here's what I think they're actually going to do. Either Biden in the next few weeks, right, or next even few days, pardons his family, then they claim dementia, then he leaves, then he passes away tragically. They have a big state funeral. They go, oh boy, Trump might have had an attempt on his life, but Biden's actually dead. America should unify around Biden and the Democrats, blah, 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 right? Or the Mollies might just outright, like deal with the problem that way if Biden's not willing to let go. But here's what I think may happen. I think they might simply ignore the August 4th Ohio deadline and change the law at the level of the Ohio Supreme Court making some kind of ruling about it, which is similar to, there was a Supreme Court ruling that changed election law, which actually needed to be done through the legislative branch in Pennsylvania back in 2020. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania made a change, an effective change to election law. It was just a ruling they made. They couldn't actually legislate, and it needed to be changed by the legislature in order for it to be legal according to the Pennsylvania Constitution, and yet it went through. Might they just do that again? I think there's a very good chance that that might be exactly what the Democrats have planned, because I just don't see how they can quickly switch gears, and I also don't see any way they think that Kamala's going to win. I think, not even that deep in their heart of hearts. I think at the pericardium level, right? The lining of the heart level, they know at the most surface level of their hearts that there's not a chance in the world that Kamala can beat Trump, especially after the attempt on his life. And so I just think that there's no way whatsoever that we can see anything other than that the Democrats are going to have to shift gears, and they're probably going to have to do some kind of end run around that August 4th deadline, because I don't think that they can switch gears in the next, I guess that would be 9 days, right? Like, are they going to really build up Kamala for 9 days and then suddenly bring in the ringer of Michelle Obama, Gavin Newsom, or Hillary Clinton? Gosh, I don't think they can do that. I don't think they have time. So it seems to me that they're probably going to have to do some more lawfare and get it through to the Ohio Supreme Court and have the Ohio Supreme Court add them in or do some other shenanigans to shoehorn it in and just ignore that August 4th deadline. I just don't think there's any way that he can or that they can run with Kamala, nor can they change gears prior to August 4th. So something I find very, very interesting is that Netanyahu, who addressed Congress this week, and I have a lot on that in the second half, right? Or at least something very, very interesting in the second half about that. He then met with both Biden and Vice President Harris afterwards, and according to reporting at Zero Hedge, he was absolutely furious with her when he left. Now, mind you, there's been tons and tons of Democrats who were not, and prominent Democrats at that, who were not at Netanyahu's speech to Congress, which is kind of wild. Like, for example, Bernie Sanders wasn't there, right? He's not a Democrat exactly, but he's a Democrat, right? He's an independent, but he votes 98% of the time with the Democrats or whatever it is, right? He wasn't there. He's a very prominent figure, of course, in American politics. Likewise, Nancy Pelosi wasn't there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wasn't there. And there was a whole laundry list of very prominent Democrats who weren't there. And some people like to call Netanyahu the senator from the state of Israel, the most important state in the union. He was very upset with whatever conversation he had behind closed doors with Kamala Harris. That does not bode well for the Democrats. And so the Democrats now are going to be feeling even more pressure to probably swap someone out. Now, again, there's this internecine conflict that's happening with Zionists, I guess is the best way to put it. You know, you have nationalist Zionists like Netanyahu, and then you have more globalist Zionists like Chuck Schumer, who seem to be at odds with each other, or Yuval Noah Harari, who was leading demonstrations August of 2023, you know, just a handful of weeks before the October 7th events, right? And so you have this, what appears to be a rift between different Zionist groups. It's Chuck Schumer, right, who is the Senate Majority Leader. He called for Netanyahu's resignation just a few weeks ago, which is like, whoa, you know, that's like a really big deal. There's clearly a rift between a lot of high-ranking Democrats, even ones who are Zionists like Chuck Schumer, and Netanyahu. It's very curious. And meanwhile, you have, I forget what his name is, Ben Gvir, who's like the Israeli, I want to say, defense minister. He's a very high-ranking guy in the Israeli Knesset. And he said that he greatly prefers Trump to win rather than Biden or Harris, rather, now, because he thinks that Trump would be more supportive of Israel. And you can have whatever feelings about that. People often ask on this channel, well, wait a minute. If Trump is a Luciferian, right, why would he be supportive of Israel and what's happening in Gaza? And my response to that is, well, the Luciferians are very deceptive. As Sun Tzu said, subterfuge or deception is the central part of war. It's deception is from which all war springs from deception. I forget the exact quote, but basically deception is at the very heart of war. And therefore, if you consider that there is a shadow war going on, there's a spiritual war between Luciferian and Malachian forces, and one of the most important geopolitical pivots on Earth from both an esoteric and occult point of view, and also from a geopolitical point of view, is Israel, then you have to consider that perhaps Trump and the Luciferians, who are represented by various nationalists such as Milei, Malone, so Milei in Argentina, Malone in Italy, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, and then Bukele in El Salvador, all of these figures that are hyper-nationalists that seem to be very squarely in the camp of the Luciferians, they're all very, very, very outwardly supportive of Israel. And that doesn't mean that they actually believe that. It could be that they are using that as a mask in order to get into power, and then they might turn and betray the Israelis. And that's actually what I think is very likely to happen. That is my personal read on that. I could be wrong. The Luciferians are playing 4D chess, 5D chess, 7D chess, like way beyond anything you can imagine. And I don't just mean the people, I mean the literal deity Lucifer, who operates through people who are at Luciferian levels of consciousness, is the one pulling all the puppet strings ultimately. And I do believe that that being is playing a level of geopolitical chess that's way beyond our ken as human beings. We can't really understand it, and we're only going to really be able to understand it with the benefit of hindsight. Will they continue to support Israel once the Luciferians sweep into power over the next 18 months or so? I don't know. They may, right? again, the Luciferians are not good guys. Just because they stand in opposition to the Malachians does not make them good. It does not make them noble. It does not make them not ruthless. They're extremely ruthless. That's one thing you can count on, and one reason that you shouldn't see these figures as saviors. It is a light, which is better than the complete pitch darkness of the Malachians and their harm of children and slavery and top-down tyrannical control. They believe in meritocracy. They believe not that God should be destroyed the way the Malachians do and inverting all of nature, but they believe in a false light to lead you away from God in the form of narcissism and self-indulgence. They do have some positive principles like meritocracy, rule of law, things such as this, but by no means are they a force of good. They're just, to put it in classical terms, the lesser evil. And so it's really important to keep that frame when you're analyzing things, to not make the mistake of falling into that duality of good and evil, right? There's good guys and there's bad guys, and that's how the world works. The actual way the world works is that there's been a titanic struggle going on since the time of Cosimo Medici and the translation of the Hermetica, which kicked off the Renaissance and basically the modernization of the West, you know, in the late 1400s. And then he died very quickly after that translation. And that being a Luciferian impulse of the upliftment of humanity, and then this Malachian impulse to keep humanity down and to lower consciousness and to lower standard of living and to have complete domination and control and attacking the population and reducing numbers and harming children and all the things that they do. There's been a titanic struggle going on between those two forces, but you shouldn't look at it as one is positive and one is negative. You should look at it as two, sort of like a dark pitch black evil and then a more gray, more morally nebulous and ethically nebulous Luciferian group. The Malachians are pure evil. There's nothing redeeming about them whatsoever. There are some redeeming characteristics to the Luciferians, but they shouldn't be looked at as good guys. They shouldn't be looked at as saviors, because they're not. That's something I try and hammer home all the time on this channel. Instead, they should be looked at as an improvement. And as we move out of this Kali Yuga and into the Dwapara Yuga, that Luciferian consciousness is going to come to dominate the planet. And as it does, that lower edge of that graph I often show, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go watch the Shadow Wars Part 1, where I talk about the description of the factions, the Luciferians, Malachians, and Most High factions, right? But that lower part of the Venn diagram I often show in this channel that shows Malachian consciousness, it's going to be cut off almost like a tumor and drop off. That'll still leave that lower Luciferian consciousness, which is the higher end of Malachian consciousness, which is ruthlessness and fighting for power, all that kind of stuff. But it at least gets rid of the horrible stuff like child harm, slavery, right? Hive mind mentality, chaotic duality, you're either with us or against us. That kind of mentality is going to drop away. And that'll be a huge step forward for humanity. But you shouldn't be looking at these groups as good guys versus bad guys, because if you do, the world stops making sense again. If you look at it through the lens of there are a lot of good people on earth who are moving towards and striving towards being in most high consciousness, right? To love thy neighbor as thyself. I consider myself one of these people, right? I operate in the higher end of Luciferian, lower end of most high consciousness as my sort of baseline consciousness. Quite a lot of people who are fairly good people operate more in that middle tier of Luciferian consciousness where there's meritocracy, where there's rule of law, right? So the material betterment of humanity. But the dominant consciousness on the planet right now, which is fading and shifting, is that Malachian consciousness, and we're moving into the Luciferian consciousness. And so to wrap up in part 2, which is for Patreon members, and you can go into, you can go right, oops, let me see, I do not have a link for that. I'll have a link here in a second. You can go to White Lotus of Light on Patreon and sign up for free. And then after 1 week of free access including all the past members only live streams and some amount of the angelic prophecies that are for members only, not all of them, which you'll get access to all of that immediately when you sign up. You can evaluate for a week, and then if you find there's value, and I think there's a lot of value, then for $11 a month, that's less than $3 a week, less than the price of even black coffee out, you could support the channel, and then you get access to the second half. And the second half is where I tend to go really deep. And so in the second half, we're going to talk about some evidence that ultra tech, as I often call it, and perhaps even the Antarctic Germans may have been spotted at the attempt on Trump's life in Pennsylvania, which is new information that came to me from a figure who is a security expert. And they analyzed it and put it through AI and found that it appears to be real and not generated by AI. I feel intuitively that it's real. We're also going to talk about how there is this mafia style symbolism to where very often there are assassination attempts that come in threes. For example, JFK was the third of three. There was a figure in Vietnam who was a figure who was suing for peace in Vietnam. I forget who the other one was, and then JFK was the third one. Very often, the mafia likes to do 3 hits. There's a reason for that. There's an esoteric symbolic reason, and I'm going to be talking about that and how it seems that Trump was the first of 3, and a second one has already happened, and there may be a third one on deck. I'm then going to talk about someone spotted a dark esoteric hand gesture at Netanyahu's address to Congress, which is very creepy and very odd. Some of you may remember that when they were certifying the vote after the events of January 6th that, seemed to have been the false flag, right? That after those events, there was the certification that was done by Congress, and Mitch McConnell was looking very nervous, and he looked behind him, and a man goes and makes this inverted triangle symbol. And Mitch McConnell looks at it, and he startles even a little bit, and he looks shaken, and he looks back. That video is very hard to find now. There was a similar, very creepy, obviously esoteric gesture that was given to Netanyahu by a very interesting figure, someone who I wasn't even aware existed until it just happened. Also, I think it's notable that Elon Musk, another well-known Luciferian, was there at Netanyahu's address. And so we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about angelic prophecy and the Paris Olympics and how perhaps some of the angelic prophecy is already coming true. By the way, there is the link to the Patreon. So if you're interested and you'd like to see part 2, again, you can sign up for free, 1-week trial, and you get access to all the prior members only Patreon. You get access to a certain amount of complete angelic prophecies that were for members only, not all of them. There's a couple that are for higher tier members. And again, talking about angelic prophecy, anytime there's something very, very important that I can share without getting the channel nuked, that will be shared publicly. One thing I can say, and I will say this now, and it's a pity I should have said this before I got to the screen when I had more eyeballs on it, but who's meant to see it will. There was a very chilling warning that was given out by RFK Jr. today, which will also be talked about in the second half. You can look today on his Twitter/X.com feed, RFK Jr., unless it's been taken down. You need to read that, and you need to see that a very similar action to what the FDA just did, or maybe it was DHS, just did, a similar action was taken in Europe. And I have said for a while now, based on what the angels have told me, that there's a high likelihood that there will be an event very similar to 2020. And I will give another hint. There's a Tom Clancy novel that is known as Rainbow Six. And if you look up into what was discussed in that novel, I am concerned that a similar thing may happen. Finally, and I really have to be very careful about this, if one does research into the events of 1918 and the illness that spread throughout the world in 1918, and one looks into how there was a much higher survival rate among people who were in Western U.S. near Native American reservations, there was something that those people took, and I have to be very careful because I got a strike for this, that on a video that was unlisted, an immediate strike. I did a review, an immediate human within 10 minutes, which is unheard of. You normally need to allow 72 hours, gave my channel basically a strike, basically a warning, and I will never get another warning. From now on, it's straight to strikes, and 3 strikes and you're done. And so in the interest of preserving this channel, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to look that up. If you're curious, I can talk about it on Rumble. I will mention it tonight on Rumble, and you can get the free membership to do that. I'm so sorry that I can't put it on publicly. I really want to. It's an example of how I will never withhold anything from the public that the angels tell me that could be in the interest of people protecting themselves and their family and loved ones. I will also say that the angels have said urgently that if you haven't already, you need to, as soon as possible, get food, water, and any medicine you need for at least a few months, for as much as you can afford. And then just know that if you can't afford much, and almost everyone can afford beans and rice, probably if you're watching this, you can afford beans and rice, that you should really get on that right away, because we are at the outer edge of the eye of the storm. And the angels and the prophecy that they've given me has said that once we get to August, but especially September, late September, maybe even mid-September, events are going to start to snowball, and things are going to get very challenging for about 18 months. And I believe that you need a minimum of 3 months of food, water, and medicine for you and your family. And you may need point and click self-defense mechanisms, the kind of stuff that the Democrats want to take away from people in order to defend yourself and your hearth and home and family. And so much love, everyone. And the second half will be up on Rumble. You can find it there on patreon.com, White Lotus of Light. That'll be up here fairly shortly, the link, and it will begin in about 15 minutes from now. Thank you so much. Much love, everyone, and see you next time. All right, bye-bye.